Hi, this is Tim. Welcome to Tim Can Cook. So today we're going to make lunch, making sloppy joes. Now sloppy joes are a very simple recipe, very easy to make, a way to take hamburger kind of to the next level. Starts out with a pound of hamburger. Now this is hamburger that I've ground myself. As you would know from an earlier video, I buy primals and I cut my own steaks and roasts. And as a result, I always have leftovers, extra trimmings off of very high quality meat, which I turn into my own hamburger. So we start with a pound of hamburger. We're gonna add a small onion diced, tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, teaspoon of yellow mustard, 6 garlic cloves minced, again through my mincer, which is linked down below, a tablespoon of brown sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper. In addition, we're going to use 2 cups of homemade tomato sauce. You can use canned, of course, and we'll augment that with some tomato water if necessary to loosen the mixture up. And then we'll serve it on toasted homemade hamburger buns. Link to make the hamburger buns will be up here in the corner. Link to make the tomato sauce will also be up here in the corner. And next thing we're gonna do is we'll go over to the stove and get this started. It won't take long, we'll be eating sloppy joes. Okay, we have our pan heating on the stove. Just gonna add a couple tablespoons of olive oil to the pan. And then we'll toss in our beef and get it browning. You can see this is kind of a coarse grind. I prefer my ground beef coarse, and since I make it myself, I'm able to control that. You can use, anything you buy in the store. You don't have to grind your own. My ground beef is much, much higher quality than the store-bought at half the price because I cut it out of those beef primals. So it's a cost savings measure and it's a quality control measure. I control exactly how much fat goes in, and again the size of the grind. So while this is cooking, it's okay to add the salt. So I'm going to add the salt and pepper. And of course you can add more of that later to taste. Season as you go, right? Season as you go. It already smells wonderful. And as soon as this beef is no longer pink, then we'll add in our onion and get that cooked down. And we are on our way to our sloppy joe lunch. All right, so our beef is not pink any longer. We'll get our onions in the pan and get those going. This is actually a Vidalia onion, so I've left it a little bit coarse. If it were a yellow onion or another variety of white onion, I would have probably cut it a little smaller. But these Vidalias are so sweet, I go ahead and leave them large. Now at this point, you could also add green bell pepper, red bell pepper if you would prefer. I don't really like that in my sloppy joe, although I know a lot of people do. This would be the time when you would add the bell pepper as well. And we're just going to cook these until they soften and become translucent. Doesn't take very long. Now I know there's garlic going in this pan as well. Do not add the garlic yet. It's important that we don't put the garlic in there so early that it burns. I see a lot of recipes, a lot of online particularly, where people throw the onion and the garlic in together. And it just doesn't work. The garlic will overcook or the onion will undercook. So you really want to control when you put those in. The garlic only needs to cook long enough to take away the bitterness, which is really only about a minute. And the onion obviously takes 3 or 4 minutes to get to that softness stage. And this is fine. These onions are now actually to a really good point that we can continue with the rest of this recipe. So at this point we will put in our garlic. And we'll get it stirred around. Now I'm cooking this on high because this stove, even on high, isn't super hot. On a nice gas stove, I'd probably be on medium high. So once this garlic has been in here for about a minute, then we'll go on to our next ingredients. Again, you want to cook the harshness out of that garlic, so you don't want to toss in any of your sauce ingredients, any of your wet ingredients, until that garlic's had a chance to cook for about a minute. And that will really help. You can really tell from the smell when the garlic has kind of passed that bitter stage, because the smell becomes much sweeter. All right, so we're going to add in our Worcestershire sauce, our brown sugar. Now, I don't just dump the brown sugar in the middle because it often clumps up. So I help it by just spreading it around a little bit with my fingers. The yellow mustard. Give that a mix, get that a little spread around. And you might not think that was very much mustard, but the vinegar in that mustard really adds just the right touch to our sloppy joes. Okay, now at this point we're going to add in our tomato sauce. Now again, this is our homemade tomato sauce. The link is up above. This can be your favorite canned sauce, but you notice this sauce has no seasoning in it. So if you're using a seasoned sauce, like a pre-made spaghetti sauce or something, then you might want to adjust your other seasonings. This sauce also has a consistency a little closer to a tomato paste than a sauce. We've taken a lot of the tomato water out of it, although we've saved that. So again, if you watch the video on how do we make the sauce, you'll see that there's nothing that goes to waste, and we get a large amount of tomato water or tomato stock out of the process. So depending on how thick you want your sloppy joes, this is where you would control that. I am going to add a little bit of tomato water here, and less than a quarter cup. I do want this to be a little thinner. And because we're going to simmer this now for about 5 minutes, I want there to be a little more liquid in here. Oh, this really starts to smell wonderful. Now I have a lot of friends who like a hot sloppy joe. So you can go ahead and spice it at any time, right? You can add additional salt and pepper. Quite often I will have to add salt and pepper. At this stage, you could add hot sauce, you could add Thai sweet chili sauce, anything you want to kind of change this flavor up a little bit. I've got this into a pretty good place at the moment. So we're just going to take a taste and see what we need for seasoning. I actually like that. We're just going to turn our temperature down now and let this simmer without a lid for about 5 minutes. And then we'll be ready to serve it up and eat. I am going to add a little more liquid as the stove cools. I don't want this to boil off and become too thick. So the temperature's come down now on the stove. We will let this simmer for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and serve it up. So we've been simmering now for 5 minutes, and I've tasted it. I haven't had to adjust the seasoning. I love the way it is, just as it is. So we'll head on over to the counter and we'll serve this up and have a taste. Okay, we're back. I have served the Sloppy Joe mix over toasted homemade hamburger buns. Again, the recipe for those, the video for those is up here. I really prefer mine open face. Sometimes I'll add a little cheese, shredded cheese at this point, or a dollop of sour cream. I may put some cheese on these for lunch here in just a minute. But let's go ahead and have a taste. Sweet onion comes through. Wonderful tomato. I really do love this. It's a very inexpensive meal. You know, you can feed your whole family for less than $10. You know, add a side salad or something. But I hope you've enjoyed this video and it inspires you to make your own Sloppy Joes. Until next time, this was Tim Can Cook. Thanks for watching.